In order to get what you want, you have to want what you have. And I wrote about this last week and I received such an excellent question. I wanted to share it with y'all and also tell you my thoughts on it. It read like this: we think that when we have shit that we don't want, that's a bad thing. And we need to somehow get rid of it or change things so we don't have to be in that situation anymore. That was a quote from my writing. And then the question was, what about people in abusive situations? Of course they would want to change it. They'd say they don't want to accept it. Oh my God, that is such a great question. So the first thing I want to say is that accepting something is not approving of it. Accepting something does not mean that I think it's a great idea, that I wish it was always this way. Acceptance does not have a positive connotation necessarily. Accepting it does not mean celebrating it. It does not mean thinking it's good. It does not mean wanting to perpetuate it. Accepting it is a very neutral stance towards what is. What about people in abusive situations? That's such a great question. I worked at a domestic violence shelter for a while, and every single woman that ended up in the shelter ended up there because before that point, they didn't think it was that bad. I would hear things like, well, he slapped me, but it didn't really hurt me, so I didn't think it was that bad. Or, yeah, he beat the shit out of me, but I was being a bitch, so I totally understand how his temper got the best of him, right? Or the guy would be abusive, even if not physically, emotionally, or verbally, and then he would show up with like the bouquet of roses, and the women would be like, oh my God, he's trying to change. And fair enough, many times the dudes were trying to change, but until they do, the women are not in a good situation, right? So why did they not leave sooner? Women in abusive situations didn't leave sooner because they were in denial about how bad the situation was. In other words, they were not accepting the reality. They were wishing it to be different. They were hoping that if only this or if only that, then the person would change. And that never happened. And it had to get to a point where it was so bad that reality could no longer be denied, right? Unfortunately, many of these women were in really bad situations, like some of them close to losing their lives. And that's when they realized, yeah, okay, I can't really deny this anymore. This is not getting better. He's not improving, even though he's apologizing. I gotta get the hell out of here, right? And so, of course, women wanted to change the situation, but they were in denial about how to go about it. They were thinking, the situation will change when he becomes a guy that doesn't abuse me. When the reality is that the situation was only gonna change when they got out of there, right? Because we don't have any power to change other people. We can only change ourselves. And so if I'm sitting around in an abusive situation, waiting for the abuser to change, I might have to wait a really long time. And if I have the right support, if I have the context where this is viable, because I want to make it super clear, people that are in abusive situations are not there because it's their fault. They're not there because they deserve it, and they're not there because they're dumb and they're putting up with it. They're there for a lot of very complicated reasons, right? That too long to get into right now. But if they're in a situation where they can come out of denial and look at their reality for what it is, a bad situation that will not change unless they change, that's the day when they leave and they get help and their lives start to get better. And so they want to change the situation, and they're only able to do it by changing their part in it. For all the crappy situations in our lives that we want to change, we need to first get really honest with ourselves and be willing to say, you know what, this situation really is not good for me and I need to get out of it, or I need to do something to change it. But sitting around waiting for it to change is usually not gonna work, which is why I say that it's not that we want what we have in terms of like, I want to have an abusive relationship. That's not what I meant. But like wanting to see the reality that what we have is shit so that then we can do something about it. I think this also applies to a lot of people that are sick and they're not going to start getting better until they actually see the doctor. Super common in people that struggle with addiction, alcoholism, drug addiction. They're like, oh, it's not that bad, it's not really a problem. When they really finally see it as a problem, they can change it. And so for any situation, it doesn't even have to be a horrible problem. Like anything that you want to see transformed in your life, first look at it for what it is in reality. It's usually helpful to ask other people for help with this, because humans, we're so great at not seeing things clearly, and we're so great at lying to ourselves. So once we have a clear picture of our situation, we can decide, do I like this? Do I keep going with this? Or do I really transform it? But before then, there's very little hope. I hope today you find the courage to look at whatever situation in your life might be up for you with clear eyes and the determination to make a choice about how you want to live.